Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast. It's me, Joe Pisapia, and today we're going to help you win your league. That's right. It's all done. We've already won you your league, so you can sit back, enjoy the show, and then go do your draft because it's pretty much over. We're going to give you the names of the guys that are league winners in 2024, and to help me do it, of course, is D-Bro, Derek Brown, the king of bros, and also one of my favorite people in the industry. He's the host of Fantasy Football Today over on the CBS side of things, along with that whole crew. It's the one, the only Dave Richard. Now, Dave, before we get into the show, we cleared the air because apparently last year at the Fantasy Football Fest, the big thing going on there over in Canton, I guess you walked by Derek Brown and you didn't say hello and you thought maybe that Derek was upset at you. It was a whole thing there. So we've cleared the air. Everything now is okay between you guys, yes?
First of all, if I'm one of your favorite people in the fantasy industry, then you need to meet more people, Joe.
No, I've met them all. I still like you. No,
you're like sweet. You. Second of all, of course, I'm not going to talk to Derek. Are you kidding me? What do I have to do with that guy?
Smart man. Smart man.
I thought it was D-Bro. And honestly, how many people look like you? In this?
I was going to say, it could have easily been John Daigle. Because that entire
he doesn't have the jewelry in the nose. He doesn't have the cool tats. And I froze. I didn't want to stop you. I don't know where I was going. I don't remember, but I feel like a word that rhymes with Mick. So I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. And this year, if you're there, man, we will definitely say what's up.
We have to hug it out. We have to hug it out, Dave.
That works.
You're very lucky, Dave, because right after you said I was sorry, Derek turned right behind him to the panel behind him, and just like in Billy Madison, he crossed your name off that list like Steve Buscemi did. So you're good now. You're totally clear.
You got lipstick on.
No, well, who knows? It's early. We're just starting the show.
It's early.
You could use a little something, Derek. Yeah, just maybe.
I need something to bring out the color in my eyes. Maybe the bloodshot.
Yeah. Who'd have thought a bald, bearded guy at the Fantasy Football Expo would have been really hard not to notice.
1 in a million, Joey. That and backwards trucker hats. You never find anybody wearing them. Never.
You know what else is 1 in a million? All the giveaways we're doing here from Trophy Smack. So the Fantasy Football Championship ring is officially gone. Renee Laureano, you are the big winner. So Renee, get in touch with us over at customer support at mailbag@fantasypros.com with your mailing address and proof of your subscription to Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. And we're going to send that ring straight out to you again. Renee Laureano, you're the big winner. Congratulations. And because we like giving away things, we've got more fun stuff from Trophy Smack. This time we've got the I Suck at Fantasy Football flag from Trophy Smack. I love this one. Derek, I was going to give this one to you after your performance in Flex last year together. So now you get a chance to redeem yourself in that league. But here you go. I Suck at Fantasy Football flag, courtesy of Trophy Smack and our good pals over there. Subscribe to Fantasy Pros YouTube channel, your ultimate source for fantasy football analysis and updates, and leave a comment on any of the videos. That's it. That's all you got to do to win this, and give it to a friend or an enemy. It's fantastic. Again, the I Suck at Fantasy Football flag, only from Trophy Smack. Subscribe, comment, ring the bell till it goes ding, so you can get the ultimate L with pride. All right, gentlemen.
Joey, hold up.
Okay.
I need a second here, because if you're going to get me something for Trophy Smack, I would much prefer the short truth singlet. Just throwing it out there.
You can pull the singlet off. Okay. And then whenever like you get to like the playoffs, you do the old Kurt Angle where you rip the top of the singlet off.
Yeah.
That's always the best.
Now I know
nobody wants to see it.
Now I know what you're wearing at King's Classic.
You're not going to be able to miss me this year at the Expo, Dave. I got the singlet on, baby.
If you're wearing that.
There you go. That's worked out very well for you. All right. Before we get into the names the guys have, I've got a name I want to throw out at both of you. In a single quarterback league, can Anthony Richardson be a league winner at his current ADP? We all talk about the upside of Anthony Richardson, what he could be in fantasy football, but single quarterback leagues, a lot of people, especially this year, like to wait on quarterback because you can get the Dak Prescotts, Jordan Loves, guys like that later. Dave, you're our guest. I want to talk about this player because, again, it's a single quarterback league. I understand Superflex, Anthony Richardson maybe could be that guy, but in the current single quarterback format, do you think Richardson could be a league winner this year?
There's no question. And it's because of his ability as a runner. The fact that Shane Steichen even came out and said that he's going to keep running him and using him, and he's not afraid to slow him down because of the injuries last year. You don't ask leopards to change their spots or something like that. But the bottom line is that Richardson, I'll tell you what, I thought he was actually a better passer in the pros than he was coming out. Like, I really got on him for footwork and mechanics and all that stuff. And I think he started to smooth it out. I know it wasn't very much. It was only a few games, but what I saw was improvement. And now that he's had a full year to really rehab the shoulder and then get his footwork straight, man, it wouldn't surprise me in the least if he finished as a top 5, if not top 1. I guess that's kind of what you're getting at here, Joe, is a top 1 fantasy quarterback. I think he can absolutely do it. I think the schedule is actually favorable for Indianapolis. I just got done wrapping my entire projected schedule analysis. Indianapolis came out very well in that, especially running the ball, and that's something he's going to do a lot of. The cheat code is there for him. Yes, he can be a league winner for sure. I just want to caution people, don't reach crazy for him. Like, don't take him over Lamar Jackson. Don't take him over Jalen Hurts. Don't do anything crazy. But once you get to that QB5 spot, Stroud makes sense. Burrow makes sense. Richardson makes sense. Richardson makes the most sense if it's 4-point for passing. I play in a lot of 6-point for passing. So Richardson isn't quite QB5 for me yet. But, man, there's tons of upside for him. He's absolutely a league winner contender.
Yeah, I concur with everything you've said. And you are correct, by the way. It's the Leopards. I did double check it for you that don't change their spots ever. Debro, again, single quarterback league at current ADP. I think that is the question when it comes to Richardson. Not a matter of talent and upside. But do you believe in that circumstance he can be a league winner still for people?
Absolutely. And I'm glad that we're talking about him because he almost made my list. I just didn't want to feel like I was giving such an obvious pick here. But Richardson and the projections over on FantasyPros.com right now, I mean, yes, like we're talking about, we want the rushing. He's projected for the second most rushing yards out of all quarterbacks, behind only Lamar Jackson. And if, like Dave's talking about, he takes another step as a passer this year, because I think walking into camp and stuff, he's 100%. Talked about some soreness in the offseason. I don't care about any of that. Like, he looks healthy. Everything seems to go. This offense is going to take flight. Now, Richardson has QB1 overall upside this year.
So what you're saying is I'm obvious. Is that what you're saying? A little bit.
Not always. Maybe in this instance, though.
I got news for you. You just named the most obvious league winner candidate outside of players that you'll take in like round 1 or 2.
Well, he ain't going in round 1 or 2 or 3 in a lot of drafts that I've been in, that's for sure. Let's get to the names on your list, Dave. Let's start with somebody on yours. It's a wide receiver that last year a lot of people had high expectations for, but let's just say, something happened there with a quarterback and things didn't quite work out with the Jets. So let's talk about Garrett Wilson and why you think this year is going to be different and he can be a league winner.
And this is another very, very obvious candidate as a league winner because we've seen how great he is as a route runner, as a speedster. He's got really good hands. He's really a legit alpha number 1 type of wide receiver in the National Football League. He just hasn't been paired with a good quarterback outside of like 4 snaps plus whatever Joe Flacco gave him a couple of years back. Last year, at least Zach Wilson, if there's one thing Zach Wilson did right last year, guys, it was target Garrett Wilson. He averaged 9.9 per game. He had 168 for the year. Almost 23% of them were uncatchable. That's a little high. We were looking for a number below 20%. That is definitely high. I went back before the show started today. I rewatched all of his targets inside the 10. He had 11 of them. He scored on 2. He should have had at least 2 more touchdowns if he had a competent quarterback. Now, I know that Aaron Rodgers is 40. I know that people are wondering what's going on in his head. We know he's coming back from an Achilles. Guess what? The guy is still super talented at throwing a football, and he's still going to do that for the Jets. They improved their offensive line to further protect Aaron Rodgers. I think Garrett Wilson's in line to have that target number at least stay the same, if not increase a little bit, and be a bona fide stud number 1 type of wide receiver. And we're drafting him toward the end of round 1, beginning of round 2, definitely into round 2 if it's non-PPR or super flex. But the dude is absolutely a monster. He's got number 1 wide receiver upside. Totally love taking him with my late first-round picks and then coming back with the best available running back and start my draft with a little bit of balance, Joe. Some RB, some wide receiver to begin.
Any hesitancy at all regarding how good the defense is, that maybe that does limit some of the upside? You know, a lot of these teams, we're looking at these offenses with bad defenses, the scoring is going to be prolific. The Jets really set up for that, especially with an aging Rodgers?
I think it's all set up for Garrett Wilson. And I feel like you're playing devil's advocate here more than anything else.
Well, this is my job, Dave. I'm on the show here. I'm hosting the show. I am the audience. The audience has questions they demand to be answered, damn it.
I don't see the target volume shrinking because the Jets just like take command defensively and they're in a bunch of 24-0 games in the fourth quarter. Now, obviously, that's a bad formula, but how do they get to 24? Obviously, Breece is going to have a big say in that, but I think Garrett Wilson will too. I don't see there being another wide receiver there. Sorry, Mike Williams. Sorry, Malachi Corley. Sorry, Tyler Conklin. You guys are not going to be the ones to take Garrett Wilson off this high volume perch that he is on.
Yeah, there's no problem there. All right, Debro, let's go to you with one of your league winners this year in 2024, and it's a quarterback.
Yeah, this is the guy that I felt like I had to bring up on the show. I know I've talked about him on numerous shows previously, but we're talking about league winners. The guy that could really just bring home the bacon for you this year is Jayden Daniels, man. Like, we know the rushing upside that he carries. I mean, right now on FantasyPros.com, he's projected for 584 rushing yards. And the reason I bring that up is because I went back last night preparing for this show, and I looked all the way back to 2019, okay? So not a insane sample of 10, 12 years, but relevant. Since 2019, we've had 19 individual quarterback seasons where a quarterback has rushed for at least 500 yards. Out of that sample, 95% of them have finished as the QB 11 or higher in fantasy points per game. 63% of them have been the QB 6 or higher. And we're talking about league winners, 42% of that sample, so almost half of them, have been the QB 3 or higher. So we want to talk about accessing league-winning upside. I can get this guy in the middle rounds right now, and you're telling me it's a coin flip that he can finish possibly as a top 3 QB in fantasy this year? Yeah. Plus, we're going to add in Cliff Kingsbury's offense. They're going to run a ton of plays. Absolutely. Jayden Daniels has to be on this list.
All right, this question, when do you pull the trigger on him? So you're going above the Jordan Loves and Dak Prescotts and guys that are going kind of like 9-10 like Kyler Murray, or you're letting all of those guys go off the board, and as soon as they do, that's the pivot to Daniels, and then with like another, safe backup quarterback just in case, or you're just not even looking for a safety net?
I mean, depending on how the draft goes, I don't really care about a safety net in a one quarterback format because
such a
I
cowboy.
can find players. I can find quarterbacks late. I can go to the Matt Staffords of the world and all these other streamable options if Jayden Daniels doesn't fire and he's not a league winner. But yes, I think the move right now is, depending on which host site you're drafting on, I think that you can be aggressive with drafting Jayden Daniels. Right now, in most sites, he's in the 90s, the hundreds. You could take him in the 80s. You could take him in that range with Jordan Love and Kyler Murray and all those other players, because he carries the same type of upside. Or if you want to wait and let him go off the board, depending on where you're drafting, that's fine too. I think regardless of where you're drafting him, and I'm not saying to go crazy and draft him in the 50s or 60s around Anthony Richardson. You don't have to do that. But he's the arbitrage play off of Anthony Richardson.
There you go. You're such a rebel too. I love that. I don't need a second quarterback. I don't need anything. All in, baby.
Right.
All in.
He's 100% right, because the position is so deep in a 1 QB league, Joe. Right. You don't even have to necessarily draft one. You can just wait till after week 1 or week 2. A couple players that maybe you drafted, you're already sick of them after one game. You just move on to a different quarterback. Daniels has a great schedule to begin the season as well. Yeah. The only thing, and this is me playing devil's advocate now, see, I got the horns on. Mm-hmm. The only thing that I might
push turn so quickly,
just a little bit, is the volume of plays, because it's Cliff Kingsbury. I think the Commanders want to be a little slower. I think they want to try and win with a decent amount of run game and defense as well. That's a Dan Quinn thing. That might come from DQ, and that makes Cliff Kingsbury kind of slow it down a little bit. I think it's going to be spread offense, plenty of throwing. I know they love Terry McLaurin. I would expect McLaurin to have a very good year, maybe even the best year of his career. And Jayden Daniels doing exactly what Derek said. Lots of running, lots of good numbers. And he was so accurate in college. And he improved. I don't know if you watched his college film. I went all the way back to Arizona State on him. You did. So you saw what I saw. Just absolutely refined form as he got older and better at LSU. He's ready for the pros.
Agreed.
Yeah, I
total
agree
180%. Total 180.
On McLaurin too. I am all in on him. He is grossly undervalued in the market, which is great. Yes. So everybody keep drafting him. Dave, let's go back to you for another guy on your league winner list. This guy runs super hard. He runs like Marshawn Lynch a little bit, but he's not quite as big and bruising. It's Isiah Pacheco of the Chiefs. So let's talk about why you think he can be a league winner in this offense this year.
Literally just took him in a mock draft that I'm doing while I'm on the air with you guys. Mom, guess what? I'm finally multitasking after all these years. We saw it last year. He only had 7 games in 2023 where he played 60% or more of the snaps. He had 20 or more touches in 6 of the 7, averaged 19.1 PPR points in those games, gentlemen. That's a number that we're looking for, especially if it's not at the beginning of the draft. And I look at the depth chart for Kansas City right now as they open training camp. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is still there somehow. Deneric Prince is there. They've got Kadarius Toney taking reps at running back, but I don't think he's going to play running back. They've got the rugby player. I wonder if he's there for kick returns more than anything else. I don't know who's taking Pacheco off the field if at any point. Like, he might get worked into the ground, and that could be bad eventually. But for now, I think he's not only the lead guy, I think he's their candidate on third downs too. And if losing some third down snaps, maybe Edwards-Helaire gets that role, who knows? If that's the only worry that we've got with Pacheco, then he's still in a tremendous spot to succeed. He averaged 4.6 yards per carry each of the past 2 seasons, 15 plus touches in 15 games, including the postseason, had at least 15 PPR points in 10 of them. I think he's got just a huge, huge ceiling to hit, and exactly the type of player that I'm targeting. If I'm drafting early in round 1 and I take a wide receiver then, all right, so I don't get McCaffrey, I decide not to take Breece Hall, I don't take Bijan Robinson, Pacheco is my go-to in late round 2 to be my RB1.
A lot of confidence there from Dave Richard, and of course he is betting on that when it comes to Isiah Pacheco this year in 2024. And speaking of betting on things, the DraftKings Sportsbook app is out there right now and available for you. It doesn't matter if it's football, baseball, golf, UFC. There's something for every single sports fan, and it's easy. All you got to do is go to DraftKings Sportsbook right now. You can bet on simple things like a team to win on the money line. That's all you got to do, but you can't start unless you sign up. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. Use that promo code FantasyPros. That's code FantasyPros for new customers. You bet just $5, you get 150 in bonus bets instantly. That sounds like a pretty good deal to me. That's only on DraftKings with that promo code FantasyPros. The crown is yours. Gentlemen, let's get back to the league winners, and let's do another running back here on the list that you guys have. D-Bro, this time we got to go south to Miami.
Yeah, DeVon Achane has to make this list, and I understand immediately everybody's hesitancy, and they're saying, oh, what about this backfield? Is it going to be Jaylen Wright mixing in? Is it going to be another year of Raheem Mostert? Can he hold on? Didn't we play this game last year? And we all said, man, I don't know which Miami back to draft. I don't know. I'm just going to and a lot of people were just like, I'm just going to kind of avoid it because I don't know what to make out of this situation. But those ambiguous backfields are the ones that we need to dive into. We need to be aggressive. Like, tempered aggression in drafts is okay. You want to seize the upside, and DeVon Achane has that to be a league winner. He was RB5 in fantasy points per game last year. Where you're getting him in drafts right now, you're not even having to pay that cost of a top 5 back, possibly. In the 8 games we saw him play at least 41% of the snaps, he averaged 113.8 total yards per game, and he crushed in every single efficiency metric you could possibly pull up. So we have a lot of really sharp people in the industry producing content and talking about, okay, shout out to Ryan Heath over Fantasy Points, talking about, okay, what happens to second-year backs? Do they get a growth in their role? Do we see more volume? If that happens for Achane this year, and it's not Raheem Mostert, it's not Jaylen Wright, he could literally be a top 3 back. He could be the RB1 overall, and I don't think it's insane for anybody that saw what Raheem Mostert did last year with all those freaking touchdowns. And if Miami's offense is even better this year with more ancillary weapons around Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, can happen.
See, I like Achane, and you know this, Derek, because we did a ton of shows together last year, as we always do. And I was the guy saying, hey, take him late. He's like my last round pick. We did mocks where I took him all over the place. And then that injury happened, and I just went, ugh. It was right before all that final draft week season, and I kind of punted. And I was really mad that I did. I should have just stuck to my guns and waited it out. My problem is this year, he's going right now, I'm looking at the FantasyPros.com consensus ADP as the 8th running back. He's going ahead of Etienne, but more importantly, he's going ahead of Derrick Henry. That's something I can't wrap my mind around. I know Henry is 30. I don't care. He's in Baltimore now, and I'm going to go one more time and go with Derrick Henry. We're going to get on those horses and ride off into the sunset together. But that is where I struggle with Achane. Not the player, but the cost. Do you struggle at all with the cost of Achane?
I do. I struggle a little bit considering what you're talking about. Like, in my ranks right now, I have Derrick Henry and Joe Mixon above him, but he's still a top 10 back. But I think that the big thing and the thesis of drafting DeVon Achane where he goes is you're willing to swing from the heels, and if he does hit, like, Is the risk fully baked into his price right now? No, but the upside is still there. And if he does hit, I think the good way to frame this, Joey, is he's going to be one of the most polarizing players of the entire fantasy draft season, in the sense that he is going to tilt leagues and teams. Sure. Either he hits and he's a monster, which is the case we're making here, or maybe he's an RB2 and he doesn't pay off where you drafted him. But we can't still say that the upside to be a top 3, top 5 back is still not there.
I told you guys I'm in the middle of a mock draft.
Yeah. Oh, and, okay.
Achane just went at 27th overall. Derek, how do you feel about that?
I feel okay about it. I mean, that's about in lockstep. I think on most best ball platforms, he's going in that mid to late 20s range, and I think that's about where you're going to have to draft him. I mean, what do you think, Dave?
I think it's maybe a hair too soon, but I get it. Like, if you want to buy into the upside, and man, is there upside. He's such a talented guy. And we actually got word months ago that he was going to be used more in the passing game, and that's kind of come out now. I'm not far from where they practice. I intend to go to multiple Dolphins practices this summer just to see what he does, how he looks. Here's where I get hung up. Number one, the injuries. There's no question about it. Even beat reporters that I'm friends with that cover the Dolphins, they say that Jalen Wright was an addition to give them depth at running back, because Achane and Mostert and Jeff Wilson, man, they all get hurt. That's the position. Everybody knows that. But Mike McDaniel has a track record, and this goes back to San Francisco, and he probably learned it from working with Kyle Shanahan, always using multiple running backs when he doesn't have the mega stud like Christian McCaffrey. And so one of my concerns with overdrafting Achane is, even if he's playing every week and he's getting involved in the offense, there's going to be somebody else there that could be taking work away from him. And are they going to be taking away high-value carries? That's something that keeps me it doesn't keep me up at night. You know, I'm old. I fall asleep pretty quickly. But it does make me a little concerned about taking Achane with that late round 2 pick. And then I also went back, and my colleague at CBS, Heath Cummings, pointed this out. Almost all the big games last year came in blowouts. And it's either the Dolphins win big, where they're hanging 70 on the Broncos, or they're getting crushed by, I think Baltimore crushed them, and Achane might have had a big game then. I'm not sure. Don't hold me to it. But blowouts, yeah, Achane got involved. Closer games, the playoff games, Achane wasn't there as much. I do think he's going to take on a sizable role in the offense. Fingers crossed he stays healthy. Not sure how many games that are non-blowouts he'll have with 16 or more touches in them.
Real quick, Dave, did Derrick Henry go ahead of him or behind him in that draft? Just out of curiosity.
Now you're going to make me go and look on this. I am going
to you told your mom that you can multitask, so I thought now we have to what? Write our card until you can't now?
You're putting me on the spot. And I'm on the clock too. Oh my God.
Well, you think about that. You're on the clock.
No. Derrick Henry did go ahead. Henry went 22nd.
And all is right with
the world. And I got Pacheco at 23. And then some other players nobody's heard of went, and then Achane went 27.
All right, let's go to a tight end here. And I'm glad, because, Dave, you put him on your list, and I thought for sure he would be on Derek's today, because he's talked a lot about Dalton Kincaid, and you feel like also this is a player that really could blossom and break out in 2024. So let's talk about Kincaid and what he means to that Bills passing attack in this season.
Well, what do we look for from a tight end in fantasy? We look for a guy that's dating a billionaire, pop singer, or somebody that can finish top 2 on the team in targets. And I think there's a chance Kincaid can finish number 1 by a mile in targets in Buffalo. Already reports out of training camp, very positive. We know that it might take a while for Keon Coleman to take a step forward. Khalil Shakir, I like. He's definitely on my sleeper list, but we're not talking about sleepers right now, Joe. We're talking about guys who have league-winning upside. And I think Kincaid being the 5th tight end off the board in consensus, man, there's a chance you could make the case he could be number 1. If he's the biggest benefactor of Stephon Diggs leaving Buffalo, Gabe Davis leaving Buffalo. Gabe Davis is leaving Buffalo, and everybody's
I didn't know he was there half the time.
There's
year.
I know 200 targets abandoned from last year. If Kincaid is the biggest benefactor, the dude is a matchup nightmare. I don't know who else is really like that combination of big and explosive in that offense. So he could end up being their de facto number 1 wide receiver. And you're getting him in late round 4, early round 5, somewhere in that range. I love him. I think he's absolutely in a spot to flourish this year and put up huge fantasy numbers. Would not be surprised if he was tight end 1 by the end of the year.
Derek, a lot of people feel the same way about Drake London, a guy who is really on the upswing now, potentially that you're getting Kirk Cousins there healthy and really elevating this offense as a whole. And look, you got to pay for it. It's not like Drake London is cheap, but still, regardless of that ADP, you still believe London could be a league winner. Why?
I absolutely do. And the infusion of good quarterback play. Hell, all I care about is just league average quarterback play. Just Kirk, just don't be Desmond Ridder. Don't be Marcus Mariota. And we're going to be humming, baby. Like, looking at his situation, I think that the parallels you can draw from, it's so funny. The parallels you could draw from him and Garrett Wilson there's a lot of similarities there. We got two older quarterbacks coming off of Achilles. We got guys that are the clear number ones. And look, we can make a case for Kyle Pitts. I'm not besmirching or shading Kyle Pitts here. But looking at how consolidated that Atlanta Falcons passing attack will be and the injection of good quarterback play that I think we're going to get from Kirk Cousins is going to be fantastic for Drake London. Like, you don't really have to squint too hard to envision a scenario where London's top 3, top 5. He could get that type of target volume because here's the thing, if Pitts doesn't fire, then it's just going to be the London show. He's going to be gobbling up targets every single week. And for everybody that says, okay, well, he didn't do that much last year. Okay, well, we know the context of the offense, but just to wrap our heads around how bad the quarterback play was, Atlanta, their quarterback position overall, had the 4th lowest adjusted completion rate and the 3rd lowest catchable target rate. London's still that guy that posted top 20 metrics, top 15 metrics in everything we care about in his rookie season. That talent's there. So I'm willing to believe in the talent and the upgraded quarterback here, because if Pitts doesn't fire, London is going to gobble up targets all day.
And you were the OG London guy. I remember a couple of years ago we were doing draft covers together.
He was my wide receiver one in that class.
He was your guy. And this is, finally, you had to wait a little bit for it, but it looks like finally you're going to get to see just how good he could be, which is a very exciting thing for all of us. And look, if only there was somebody last year that warned everybody about London and Pitts.
You did.
Oh, if there was somebody out there who said the quarterback play is going to be bismarck.
And I'm sitting here saying, screw it, I'm going to do it again.
What? And here's the thing. And I think the only thing that's standing in between people is bad memories and that bad feeling about stuff. And you got to shake that stuff off, man. You got to shake off the Kyle Pitts thing and the Drake London stuff. You can't let that inform this year because it's a totally different set of circumstances. And I know you've been hurt before, but you have to learn to love like you've never been hurt before. That's the only way to be successful in life and in fantasy football. Those are life lessons from Joey P. Book's going to come out later this year in the fall, right in time for Christmas time. All right. I'm sure Callie will put the more you know right across here. All right, let's go back to you, Dave, for another guy on your list. And this guy, once upon a time, was being considered the number 1 overall pick in fantasy. Well, he has tumbled down the draft board, but you think he's got something left in the tank.
I think he wants to prove it too. It's Cooper Kupp, and everybody knows the story from last year, how he was banged up to begin the season and came back in. And listen, 2023, not even 14 PPR points per game, 7.9 targets per game, very boom or bust. He had 7 games with 12 or fewer PPR points. Not what you expect from a stud wide receiver that you took. What did we take him? Like round 1? No, we didn't because he was hurt. But you get my point. We know that he was somebody who had a lot of upside. But there are moments last year, guys, where he showed that he's got that upside. If you take out the week 11 game, he only played 27% of snaps in that game, averaged almost 15 PPR points per game, 8.6 targets per game. And in his final 3 games, 16.2 PPR points, 8.7 targets per game. That's a lot of targets for a wide receiver that you're going to get in round 5 in an offense that improved their offensive line, doesn't have the same type of defense that they had last year, and did what's right by their quarterback to put that high-powered passing offense, and they will throw a lot on the field in 2024. I think that Kupp is an injury risk. It goes without saying. We know the deal with these older running backs that are coming off of injured season, or wide receivers rather, that are coming off of injured seasons. But I think the price is right on Kupp. And I still think he's going to be kind of like the third down, reliable, and red zone / end zone guy that Stafford will lean on. If Stafford's looking for a big play, I don't think Kupp is going to be that guy most of the time. It's going to be a little bit of Demarcus Robinson in there to make everybody get upset because it's not one of their stud receivers. But I think when they get in the red zone, and we did see this in their playoff game against Detroit, it was Kupp that he looked for a lot. So if he keeps himself healthy, plays 17 games, sees over 8.5 targets per game, I don't see a situation. I don't think he's going back to the 20 range for PPR points per game, but 17 PPR points per game, I'm buying that all day long. I think he can finish as a top 10 receiver if he's doing something like that.
Dave, I've been saying that I absolutely love Cooper Kupp as my wide receiver 3 on a big wide receiver build team. I love it. As a wide receiver 2, I get a little antsy. I'm curious, do you agree or disagree with that logic? Where do you stand there?
It completely comes down to how the rest of my team looks. Of course, I'd rather have CeeDee Lamb as my wide receiver 3 too, if I can pull it off that way, Joe.
No, but realistically, you can have Cooper Kupp as your wide receiver 3. You can draft him in the 3rd round quite easily right now if you went 3 straight wide receivers. So it's not unfeasible, if you will, to get that and make that work. But if you start off with, Bijan Robinson, then go wide receiver, and then like that 3rd round Kupp sitting there, I'm just a little antsy about it. I'm a little unsure because of the last couple of years of being on the field. If you can't be on the field, you can't help me win a fantasy week. That's where I get a little concerned with Kupp as a 2. As a 3, I'm willing to roll the dice on it. I'm just curious, do you feel that is good logic, or no, because he's Cooper Kupp and to heck with that, you have to be aggressive?
I lean with you a little bit. I think if I can get Cooper Kupp in round 4, and I've already got 3 good players already on my team, and one of them is a wide receiver already, and if he's my wide receiver 2 in that situation, I'm okay with it.
Okay.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. It'll come down to, and this is what you're saying, Joe, is what's the build of my team? If my strategy is to go receiver with my first 3 picks, I'll take Cooper Kupp in late round 3 to lock up those stud receivers. But if I've gone receiver, running back, or receiver, running back, tight end, and Cooper Kupp's the best name that I see in early round 4, yeah, I don't mind that. I think he's okay in that spot.
I love this conversation because this is the stuff that I don't think people talk enough about, is the roster construction aspect of these picks, right? Like the picks are great, the players are great, but the context of these picks, I think, is really what's so crucial about things. Also crucial is making sure that you're playing your fantasy league in a place where you're having a good time and it's going to give you the best experience. And Fantrax's free NFL Fantasy League Manager is the most customizable, easy to use, and feature-rich platform in the industry. Create or join a fantasy football commissioner league. Invite your friends, your relatives. Dave's mom likes fantasy football. Invite her, everybody. And you can go ahead and dominate your drafts this season. Go deep into the Ultimate Keeper and Dynasty leagues. Create simple redraft leagues or even customized best ball leagues with up to 2,000 teams. Fantrax is the only platform that offers season-long college fantasy football too. Oh my goodness. Draft your favorite college fantasy football players from your favorite schools and enjoy fantasy football every Saturday and Sunday. And you're coming from another service? Don't worry. Fantrax can import all your current leagues, your past leagues, and customize them as needed. And if there's anything lacking in your current fantasy league manager, Fantrax probably has it. So go right now to fantrax.com/fantasypros and sign up today. And if you do, somebody's going to win a CeeDee Lamb jersey. Again, sign up for free. Fantrax.com/fantasypros. Win that jersey and make your league experience a better one. Derek, give me another league winner in 2024.
I know people have heard this before. I get it. So if you get deja vu, I understand it. But Christian Watson can still win leagues for people this year. And you've heard me just talk about him in numerous episodes. And if you want to disregard the fact that Christian Watson, when he was a full-time player last year, led Green Bay in every single metric, volume and efficiency-wise that we should care about, that's fine. That's on you. If you want to disregard that, that's cool. But going back to the year before that, I'm still old enough to remember, guys, when Christian Watson, in the games where he played at least 60% of the snaps, again, as a full-time player, ranked top 20 in receiving yards per game, yards per route run, and first downs per route run. And now we're getting a massive discount on him in the middle rounds. And I know he's getting steamed up because people are waking up and realizing it, that Christian Watson still has the talent. I'm still willing to buy in on it because, again, we talked about, okay, if Cooper Kupp can stay healthy, if Christian Watson can stay healthy for an entire season with Jordan Love playing like he played last year, especially down the stretch, it's wheels up, man. Like, Watson's probably going to be a top 15 wide receiver, maybe a wide receiver 1, because we all think that Green Bay is going to field a really stinking good offense. Well, guess what? I want the wide receiver 1 on that offense.
Consensus 40th wide receiver off the board. D-Bro, I just don't get it. It's free money, and there is nothing. And if it doesn't work out, and we go right back to what happened the last 2 years where injuries derailed him, so be it. He is not your wide receiver 3 most likely on your roster. He is that guy you're drafting for upside, and he has the upside to be, like you said, if Jordan Love shows what he did last year in the second half, an entire season, he could be right in that wide receiver 1 conversation. Dave, I see you kind of nodding your head. So are you on board with us here?
First and foremost, he just went 81st overall. So your opinion on that number?
81st overall.
That's
good.
Nice.
Yeah,
I
sure.
love it.
Did he go to you 81st overall? Is that the
He
next
did
shoe to
not.
drop
So
here?
When I was up at when I was up at 74, I definitely needed a wide receiver 3. I took a different wide receiver than Christian Watson, and maybe you'll flame me for it, but I'm not going to tell you who it was until after. We got to make people wait a little bit. So probably
Right.
after Derek's next league winner, I'll probably say who it was.
All right.
But an
An
idea. Let's say it's round 7 and you take Christian Watson. What's wrong with spending one of your other draft picks on another Packers wide receiver? Dontavian Wicks has gotten all kinds of hype. We know that he's got some efficiency to his game. He might be able to break out this year. I'm a big fan of Jayden Reed because he's versatile, and I'd love to see him on the field even more. Last season, he only played a limited role after he got hurt. That's how he finished the year. Still scored a ton of touchdowns, including some rushing touchdowns. I don't see how the Packers get away from him if he's healthy. And then Romeo Doubs played a lot last year. And so I would take another shot on a second Packers wide receiver to go with Christian Watson. And if you're spending 2 picks, one in round 7 and one in round 12 or 11 on 2 guys from the same team, and your goal is for one of them to be a starter for your team, man, that's fine. That's not too big of a price to pay.
Wicks, by the way, if people are curious, 143 overall, wide receiver 62. So Watson and Wicks. Yeah. There you go. Oh, look at that. All right, let's go to another wide receiver. Let's talk about somebody else. This guy is in Chicago, and he is getting to play with the number 1 overall pick. It's DJ Moore. So Caleb Williams coming into town here. Certainly a lot of hype, a lot of buzz, but Chicago is a different environment than he's used to. And let's be honest, the last 6 games or so of the collegiate career did not exactly go, I think, as people might have hoped for Caleb Williams. So Dave, sell me on DJ Moore why this year he could be a league winner.
I think he can go back to what he did last year when he averaged 8.2 targets per game in Chicago and put up almost 17 PPR points per game with Justin Fields as his quarterback. I would argue that Caleb is a better thrower than Justin Fields. I saw it with my own 2 eyes. I was at minicamp. Take it for what you will. It's minicamp, but Caleb Williams, I think, had 1 bad throw over 3 days of practice. I know that early training camp reports, he's been a little up and down, and the Bears haven't had a padded practice yet. But I think Caleb Williams is a special talent. I think he can absolutely make plays on the run. And when I think about Chicago's wide receivers, of course I love them all, but Keenan Allen has already said he's going to be a slot receiver. He'll only play outside when they're in 2 receiver sets. The other receiver then will be DJ Moore. And I think he's going to be there to patrol the middle of the field, not necessarily be a downfield game breaker. Romo Dunze, awesome talent. Once that he gets rid of some of these old heads in Chicago, he's going to be a guy that we're talking about as a league winner and maybe even a top 24 pick in fantasy football. But I think DJ Moore is primed to be able to do anything the Bears want. If they want to use him on short routes, of course. Downfield routes, yes. Red zone, yes. And he did all of those things in minicamp, and he was open constantly and a great target, an easy target for Caleb Williams to hit. I think Chicago will probably throw a little bit more than they did last year as well. Caleb Williams, not the runner that Justin Fields was. So I think that passing volume does go up. That makes me much more confident that DJ Moore can get around 8 targets per game, lead Chicago in targets and every other receiving stat. I do think he will not catch as many passes, but I still think he'll be efficient, get a ton of yards, get a ton of touchdowns, and finish close, if not in the top 12 among wide receivers.
Back to you, D-Bro, with another wide receiver on your list of guys you think could be league winners in 24.
Well, I talked about his quarterback. I got to take his top wide receiver, too. Terry McLaurin, baby. I mean, all of these things, we've made these jokes. We've made these things, like talked about these talking points in previous years where we're like, if just this wide receiver could get a quarterback upgrade. Oh, man. And this feels like the same case we made year after year after year for Allen Robinson, but I'm making it for Terry McLaurin, and he's got the quarterback now, guys. And guess what? Terry McLaurin, it's not that long ago, just not even 2023, 2022, we need to be kind of rewind for Terry McLaurin. In that season, we're talking about a wide receiver that finished top 20 in both yards per route run and first downs per route run. So that wide receiver 2 type of production is there. And even if you want to go back to last year, Sam Howell got a ton of volume, but he was god-awful as a quarterback. He was terrible. It was just the volume that was propping him up. Terry McLaurin last year was wide receiver 21 in expected fantasy points per game. So all we need is regression to hit this Commanders offense, Jayden Daniels to be good, and Terry McLaurin is going to crush. Again, talking about wide receiver 3s that we can draft that are league winners. Oh, man. I'm going to have so much McLaurin across so many different leagues.
Me too. And Derek, it just, so far the needle hasn't moved still.
No.
I imagine a month from now when it's August 25th, right? We're recording this on the 25th of July. I imagine like that needle's going to start ticking up, but I haven't seen it in any of my drafts yet that I've been doing. Mm-hmm. And he already has 4 straight years of 1,000 yards receiving, despite all of that subpar quarterback play. And he has played with a lot of subpar and different ones too, which always is very difficult. I don't think people appreciate how difficult it is for a wide receiver to have this, carousel of different quarterbacks and try to find the timing with everybody. Dave, is it time to cash in on that tease?
It is time to cash in on the tease. Terry McLaurin went 74th overall in our draft. I think you absolutely love that value, D-Bro. And 100%. That's who I took ahead of Christian Watson. And that, to me, is just taking a receiver who I already know is locked in as the number one guy. Like, there's no question about it. John Dotson's not going to take that job. And so it might not be as prolific of a passing offense as what Green Bay will have, but I should have a good concentration on him being the number one guy. This sounds silly because he's been around a long time. I think McLaurin could have a career year and maybe come away with 7-8 touchdowns. Big agree. Certainly a career high in yardage. Yeah, he gets a lot of targets from year to year, has never done anything with them. 21.2% of the targets were uncatchable last year. It's a lot closer to average than it is to being like, oh my God, that's horrible. But I still think that he's got the potential with Jayden Daniels to be great. And if Daniels gets hurt, you can just forget about everything that I said, because if it's Marcus Mariota, I'm going to go cry to mommy that I've got Terry McLaurin and not Christian Watson. But to me, like that's the downside. If he just ends up being a number 3 receiver again, I'm drafting him at a spot and putting him in that role on my team where I'm okay with it. So I'm drafting him kind of close to his floor. And that's the goal with every pick that you should have in fantasy.
I think his projections are too low. 74 catches, 984, 5 touchdowns. That seems way too low right now for projections wise that I'm seeing on him. Let's go back to you, Dave Richard, for your last league winner in 2024. And it's funny because this guy was one of the league winners that Derek and I talked about last year, and a quarterback that, let's just say, did hit the ground running last season as a rookie.
He did hit the ground running, but he didn't run like Anthony Richardson did. But man, did he throw better than almost anybody in the National Football League. Yeah. We're talking about CJ Stroud, and we know this last year. And if you look at the full season, the number's kind of unappealing. It's 21.5 PPR points per PPR, doesn't matter. 21.5 fantasy points per game. That's 6 point per passing touchdown leagues. But in the 7 games he played with Nico and Dell playing at least 60% of the snaps each, that number was 27.8. That's like QB1 good. And now they're adding Stephon Diggs into this mix. Dude, I love it. I got a little history for you. This is a good omen for CJ Stroud. So sit in your chairs and, have the little desk down and not up anymore, and pay attention to the front of the classroom, please. Of the 10 quarterbacks in the past decade to post at least 20 fantasy points as a rookie, 8 of the 10 hit at least 20.5 or more the following season. 5 got to 23. If he's averaging 23 fantasy points per game, I almost think you'd be disappointed in CJ Stroud at that point. But I think he can do better than that. I think he can be in the 25-point range. That's why he's my number 5 quarterback. Awesome, awesome team. The one thing I worry about with him, now I'm playing devil's advocate for myself, Joe, is that if he's in the exact same situation that the Jets are in, where their defense, Houston's defense, I think is going to be pretty good. If their defense ends up keeping things from being out of hand or forcing CJ Stroud to throw a ton, then maybe he doesn't quite hit the mega ceiling that we're hoping for. Maybe he doesn't get to 35 touchdowns and 4,500 yards, but I still think he's going to be in line to have an improved second season. I love that the O-line's healthy, not to mention they made some additions to it. And of course, having Diggs there, I think Diggs is going to play that Cooper Kupp type role for them. Play in the slot a lot, be a red zone threat, be a third down threat, middle of the field threat. Mm-hmm. I think he'll do that for them without necessarily being 10 targets per game. That means that they'll spread the ball around a lot, and they've got some great weapons in that offense, man. CJ Stroud, worth taking as QB5, might end up as QB1 or 2.
All right, so here's the question for you. you're looking in those single quarterback leagues, we already said Anthony Richardson could be that guy. You're saying CJ Stroud, Derek's saying Jayden Daniels, because basically, you sort of had that starting gun go off, and then you see Allen, Mahomes, Hurts, some combination of them, right? Are you just better off, Dave, just waiting it out and just whoever makes it down to you, as opposed to chasing one of these guys?
Last year was the first year, I want to say in like 6, where I changed my quarterback strategy in 1 QB leagues. Last year was the first time where I said, it's okay to not just wait. Feel good about the value that you're getting at quarterback. There's going to be somebody there who's going to be worth taking. I think, goodness, I might have even been saying like late round 2 when it came to Hurts and Allen, Mahomes, like those elite guys, thinking that they just come back and be 30 points per game like they were in 2022, and they weren't. And now you'd look at the position, super deep, 2 rookies in there that are going to get drafted in every single league on top of it. I think this is a great year to go back to what I was saying before, where you're going to draft you're looking to steal somebody at quarterback in your league. You want a value.
I agree. That's a good way to put it.
And the value can be the second quarterback off the board. The draft I'm in now that I've referenced about 6 times on this show today, I got Josh Allen, but I got him in, I want to say round 4.
Whoa.
Like, it's awesome. Obviously,
that's a discipline. Well, again, every room's going to be different. And this is why I think when we do our mock draft shows, we always make sure that we're not just going against the bots. We're having people from our Discord join us, because you want to draft against people, because real people are going to make different decisions, and every draft is going to be very different. You're not just drafting against generic ADP necessarily either.
No, and I'm drafting with real people too. If you want to call Adam Azer a mutant or something, go right ahead.
Those are your words, not mine. Adam, I just want you to know that Dave said it. I didn't say it. I love you, Adam.
He set you up for it, Joey.
Dave, I don't know how Dave feels about you, Adam, but I love you.
He set you up for it.
You guys are hilarious. I was just on a show with these guys a couple weeks ago, and man, it's like us. They're friends. They're hanging out with each other. They give each other crap. That's my kind of wheelhouse. That's why I want to live.
Well, maybe not. Maybe not the guys that bunt in softball. But I digress. The bottom line is for value.
Who does that?
Azer bunted in softball?
I didn't say Azer.
Well, never mind. Opinions changing. I feel that it's it just.
What? Adam, I'm going to text him.
For the record, he claims he didn't bunt. He swung and it dribbled off.
I don't know if that makes it better, Dave.
That's almost as bad as bunting when somebody has a no-hitter going on. Like, you just don't do it. Come on.
Yeah, he actually beat it out and then somehow found a way to advance to third as the game-winning run, and then didn't score.
Sounds like almost an incredible story.
It's a good story for what happened. It's a good story for what happened after that. The other team was not happy with the swinging bunt that Azer, whoever it was, had.
The player. You should not be named. Wow. A tough room, man.
They went after poor little Adam. It was quite a scene, apparently.
All right, Derek. I'm gonna try. I don't know how I'm gonna go on from this. Dave mentioned Dalton Kincaid earlier. A tight end who is in a great position. You mentioned you're looking for opportunity, right? A guy who can really be a focal point of the offense. The Cardinals drafted their focal point wide receiver, but really, let's be honest, the rest of those guys, it's kind of a who's who of who. There is one guy, though, that we're very excited about, and it's Trey McBride. So let's talk about him and why you think currently he could be a league winner in 2024.
He's my tight end 1 overall right now, and I'm not backing off of that. I'm not. He is the clearest path to just monster volume. We want to talk about all the other guys at the top. Sam Laporte has got to contend with all these other guys in his offense. Mark Andrews, you can make that case a little bit easier, but Travis Kelce, tons of talented wide receivers. And I'm not telling you that Travis Kelce is going to be bad or anything, but we've already seen this type of upside from Trey McBride last year. Weeks 8 through 18, this guy was first in almost every single metric I could pull up. First in target share, 4th in yards per route run. He was 3rd overall in raw target volume. And this is all while Kyler Murray was quietly, I know he was good for us in fantasy, but as far as being a thrower of the football, he was quite bad amongst 45 qualifying quarterbacks, 38th in CPOE, 35th in highly accurate target rate. So if he plays better this year, and we've seen Kyler Murray,
right? He was coming off a knee injury, probably a little in his head, sure.
Exactly, giving him a pass, but saying, okay, Trey McBride did all of this with Kyler Murray struggling as a passer. What happens this year when you have Marvin Harrison Jr. to take some of the coverage away and he opens up the underneath. And it's just him and Marvin Harrison Jr. gobbling up targets every single week. And I think it could firmly happen. Trey McBride in that stretch was on pace. And I don't usually like to do this, but we have an 8-game sample here, guys. Mm-hmm. We have a giant sample. Well, no, excuse me. It's actually 10 games. 10 games here. He was on pace for 144 targets, 112 receptions, and almost 1,200 receiving yards. McBride's going to crush this year.
I love the renaissance of tight end that we have here, too. You see all these kids coming through, the Kincaids. Trey McBride had a great college career. Kyle Pitts, obviously, too. Brock Bowers this year, too. This is like that generation that grew up watching the Gronks, watching the Travis Kelce's. You know, they grew up and say, hey, you know, I could play tight end. And you've seen how these colleges have now embraced that position, especially these big-time offensive schools and the SEC schools, too. It's great to see because now, I mean, last year, I think, Dave, have you ever seen a feeling about a position change over so quickly? Where last year, I think everybody collectively went, boy, tight end is kind of rough. And this year, it feels like an embarrassment of riches with so much upside. You can make cases for 10 guys to really just be incredibly fantasy relevant this year.
I did a video for our social team on how once Travis Kelce retires, the tight end position should be abolished from fantasy. Lump him in with wide receivers because there's nobody left at the position who can deliver like Travis Kelce. That was before last season. And then Laporta came out on fire. You mentioned everybody else. Obviously, Trey McBride. Yeah.
You can say Laporta.
The position has absolutely been saved.
He's pretty good, too.
I have a little bit of a hard time reconciling just how much volume McBride will get from week to week with Harrison there. I view Kyler Murray as someone who just locks onto his number one guy. And when he does that, I just assume that everybody else on the team, maybe 7 or 8 targets, and that's still pretty damn good, but maybe just not getting to the double-digit numbers that we saw before. So I worry a little bit about the volume for McBride. I worry a little bit about the touchdowns for McBride. And those are the two factors that keep me personally from having him as high as you've got him, Derek. And you're not alone. Heath Cummings on our show, Fantasy Football Today, has him number 1 in PPR. I've got him number 4. And it's a little bit of hesitation of the target volume, the touchdowns that he will have. Not taking away a thing about the offense he's in, the player he is, the quarterback he's got. I think McBride is set up to be a top 5 fantasy tight end. I think he's worth a pick in late round 4, round 5. I don't think I'm going to get him then because there's going to be a couple people in every draft that I'm in who think like you, Derek, and they're going to say, I've got to get Trey McBride on their team. If you give me 5 seconds, I will tell you exactly where he went in the draft that I'm in right now. I bet you it's before when I would take him, and I'm curious where you would. Has it been 5 seconds yet?
Well, let's see. Right now, the consensus ADP has him 46th overall.
He went 41st. 41st.
I was going to say under. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I have no problem taking him in the 30s. I have in the high 30s.
You're taking him in the 30s. Jody.
Yeah. Well, and this is why I'm ending up with. This is why you're ending up with McBride and Dave's ending up with Kincaid, and I'm ending up with Pitts because I'm willing to wait it out. And I think that all of them at the end of the day have the same path and upside to productivity. And that's why these guys are league winners. And again, if you've got league winners, drop your comments below because you can win some cool stuff from Trophy Smack. Subscribe to the channel, Fantasy Pros, for the best in fantasy football in terms of shows and videos. We've got everything for you here on the YouTube channel. And ring the bell till it goes ding for notifications. You know, every time a piece of content drops here. Dave, Richard, always a pleasure. Please send my best to Jamie and Heath and Adam Azer too, and tell him I'm going to send him one of those Fred McGriff videos from the old days about hitting. It's going to really change his whole swing. It's going to be really nice. And that'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on. For Dave and Derek, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.
What about a Ricky Henderson video where he bunts a lot?
Ricky does love Ricky. Ricky does love some Ricky.
Yeah.